Over the war in Ukraine, now a transatlantic rift surfacing dramatically this week. The US is talking Ukraine with Russia in Saudi Arabia minus Europe. The excluded Europeans have been talking amongst themselves in a divided house. A US team led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, and the Special US Envoy Steve Witkoff is due to hold talks in Riyadh on Tuesday with a Russian delegation, and that is led by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and President Putin's Foreign Affairs Advisor Yuri Ushakov. European leaders have not been invited, not even President Zelensky. He will be in Saudi Arabia this week, but he will not be at those talks. The shock over this exclusion led President Macron of France to call a meeting of several European leaders in Paris on Monday, with, of course, no Americans around at this meeting and, needless to say, no Russians. European leaders did speak at cross purposes. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said he is prepared to send a peacekeeping force to Ukraine once the war ends. One should, I suppose, add, if it ends. The Swedes did not rule that out. Poland did. Spain said it's too early to talk of a peacekeeping force. And of course, there's no peace yet, never mind a peacekeeping force. But some Europeans did figure they cannot do this. They cannot achieve peace in Ukraine without the US. Starmer said the US must provide a backstop. He didn't quite explain what exactly he meant by that. But he said a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from ever attacking Ukraine again. Starmer is now seeking to play the leader, the lead peacemaker between the US and Europe, never mind Ukraine and Russia for the moment. Starmer is preparing to take up the European case when he visits Washington next week. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz joined Starmer in insisting that there can be no split between Europe and the US. But split there has been already. We've seen it emerging, we've seen it, in fact, widening. And this must sound like music to the Russians and to Putin. As of statements from the US leaders, several of them so far, Defense Secretary said that Ukraine can really forget about Crimea, that Russia captured in 2014. NATO membership for Ukraine is unlikely, and we've had that from several leaders, including Rubio. So that leaves negotiations open over that 1/5 of Eastern Ukraine, that Russia occupies across Lugansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. So, can the US persuade Russia to vacate those areas? And areas, let's not forget, that Putin has formally declared to be a part of Russia. If the U.S. Russian talks in Riyadh cannot produce that kind of result, and not many believe they will, Ukraine would end up losing territory, losing close to 1 million lives, losing the support of its biggest supporter until a few weeks back, and left with the support of a divided Europe, unsure how far it can go to stand by Ukraine.